Rob J gave me an incredibly generous 1 year's worth of subscriptions on Patreon and brings you today's video. Bristly Bill versus Sliver Legion, Winota and Shalai Hallar. Well, we've got 3 mana, so we can go Bristly Bill and then start ramping straight away and hope that we get into a means of refilling the hand. Alright, more ramp in the form of Archdruid's Charm, so get down the tap land. Gemhide Sliver is the first one from the tribal deck. White mana being held up by Winota or a lightning bolt, so could go after the Bristly Bill here, but not all that bothered about piling on counters to the commander anyway. And we don't have any other creatures to put counters onto at the moment, but I'll get down the commander regardless, and if it becomes a big threat then so be it. An Aethersworn Canonist for Winota, going to keep us from casting multiple spells. And from the 5 colour deck, a Mystic Skull can transform into lands you control, add 1 mana of any colour, and they do have the Crystal Quarry in play, and there is another artifact creature in the form of Esper Sentinel. Luckily we can pay the tax on this Rampant Growth. Tempted to go for the Sylvan Library, but I think we're better going after additional mana here, so Bristly Bill plus counter on itself, and it's Rampant Growth with the tax paid. And then if we manage to get into a land next turn, then it'll be 5 mana available to us, meaning we can go Skyshroud Claim, pay the tax, and then into Sylvan Library maybe. So I think we need to deal as much damage to Winota as possible, as quickly as possible, because this is a commander that will go off very quickly. Might be an idea over the next few turns to hold up a bite down onto the commander, so that we can do that before the attackers are declared here. Fertilid for the plus counters player. And then we see a Cathar Commando could take out our Sylvan Library, so that might dictate what we play in the next few turns. Got down a bounce land as well. Reflex Sliver is the next one, giving creatures haste. Alright, and we do manage to make a land. I think I'll play that as a land, so that we can go for the previous play. Maybe don't get down Sylvan Library though, we'll hold up the bite down for Winota, so play Boseiju, making our commander a 5/5. It's a shame we're not spreading our threats around with regards to plus counters, because 1 removal spell and these have kind of been wasted. Although we could always hold this up as well, I suppose. So if we did go for the Skyshroud Claim, we could hold up 3 mana for this. This could cheat in the Ancient Green Warden, but there's nothing to do with that at the moment. Yeah, I think we still go for the Skyshroud Claim. So pay the tax on the Esper Sentinel, we'll get a couple of untapped lands in with the Skyshroud Claim. A further 2 plus counters, so a 7/7 Bristly Bill. And we'll go at Winota again. It's noteworthy I was talking about going for Skyshroud Claim into Sylvan Library previously. We actually couldn't have done that thanks to the Canonist, but luckily decided to hold up the Smuggler's Surprise anyway. So got them at 11 commander damage at the moment, and down to 28 by turn 4. Problem is we're making an enemy out of Winota, so he may well just get tunnel vision coming after us. And Winota is a hard hitting commander. Agitator Ant at the beginning of your end step. Each player may put 2 plus counters on a creature they control and goad each creature that does it. I mean, we're not after Shalai anyway, so problem is Esper Sentinel could get plus counters on it. But does it want to swing in at anything? Could swing in as a 3/3 over here, I suppose. 2 plus counters placed on the Canonist, the Fertilid as well. Surprisingly, put them here instead of the Esper Sentinel. That's weird. We will put some on Bristly Bill, so we can't attack in over here. We do have to attack him with Bristly Bill though, which is noteworthy, so may regret goading it, but I don't think we're going to see any death touches or anything. Alright, there is a Fiend Hunter, so we might have to go for the Smuggler's Surprise here. Wait for them to target the Bristly Bill. This does mean that we're not having to bite down on Winota at least. So targets the commander. I was hoping that we'd be able to hold on to this so that we could pump a load of mana into it and maybe cheat some decent creatures in. But we'll make our big creatures indestructible and hexproof. And we will draw the Esper Sentinel a card, with only 3 cards in hand unfortunately. And the 4/4 turns into the right, surprisingly. We get the 3/1, meaning they're not going to block with it. I was just thinking maybe we could get them to block with Cathar Commando, then we can point the fight on this somewhere else. allow us to get down Sylvan Library, which we can't play at the moment because it will immediately get blown up by this. So our only means of card advantage at the moment. Although if we get a land next turn, we can add enough counters to this to fight Fiend Hunter and knock Winota out of the game, assuming that there's no Swords to Plowshares. But there is a Swords to Plowshares, and that goes on to the Bristly Bill, so yeah, so much for that idea. That means that we have to go Ancient Green Warden next turn, just so that we've got a target for something with Bite Down, or the Archdruid's Charm. And there we see the first Sliver going to get a Cascade with that, so yeah, the Sliver player starting to become a threat now. Okay, looks as though Harmonic Sliver was cascaded into, but our opponent didn't cast it for whatever reason. Alright, saying that it was glitched and that it wouldn't let him see the spell. I've never had trouble with Cascade myself, but I mean, this is Magic Online we're talking about. Oh, of course, it's Aethersworn Canonist. Yeah, the Cascade, you do have to cast the spell. So they can't cast off a Cascade because it would be a second spell. Yeah, I always forget that it's cast with Cascade, so alright, there's a land for us. I would rather have had a fetch so we could make consistent lands with the Ancient Green Warden, but I mean, this is fine. So Ancient Green Warden this turn, then we've got a 2-mana Bite Down is fine, and then we can actually look at getting down the Sylvan Library like I said and start to look at getting some additional cards in hand. And Urza's Saga into play for the counters player. Fertilid being activated after that, followed by Machaos the Lunarch. X is 2 on that, so enters with a couple of plus counters, and they can put more counters on it with the Agitator Ant. Alright, so Winota cares about non-humans, doesn't she? Yeah, whenever a non-human attacks, so I mean, it's all humans in play at the moment, so we might not see the commander hit, which would free us up for blowing this up. Although there's a Hope of Gaia without haste. The Manland won't have haste either, so they've just decided to tap that down for mana. Noteworthy this didn't trigger, I don't think. Yeah, it said at the beginning of your end step, and I don't think there were additional plus counters there. I don't think there was a choice for the Agitator Ant for some reason. Anyway, Winota does come into play, so it's not going to trigger here, but I mean, there's a turn cycle to get rid of it. We can wait and see what the Sliver player does, I suppose. And now seeing Sliver Legion with Cascade. Still can't Cascade with anything thanks to the Canonist. Alright, so now swinging in a bunch of stuff at the Winota player. So let's go for... do we need to Bite Down? Maybe they'll block with Winota and then we can keep hold of Bite Down. So let's go for the blocks. We could have blown up the Winota and then they've only got 4 blocks to make, and that obviously makes it more difficult for them to keep their life total up. So blocking with humans, including a Cathar Commando, this is going pretty well for us now. So blocking a 10-10 and a 10-10, taking a 6-6 and a 5-5, so 11 damage. Fiend Hunter will return the non-existent exiled card back into play. So yeah, we'll go Bite Down onto Winota, 5-7 against a 4-4. And not pay the tax on the Esper Sentinel, so this player at 6 cards in hand. So still with the Canonist in play, we do get into that fetch though. So I think it has to be Sylvan Library and we'll hold up the instant, maybe go after a creature with that, although there's not anything great that we can get really. Seeing as how we don't have that many creatures with plus counters on them, maybe if we can keep Ancient Green Warden in play, we can go for Avenger of Zendikar. But it's Sylvan Library now that the Cathar Commando has gone down. So yeah, might as well pay into the Esper Sentinel here. Play a land for the turn and just hold on to it for now, because we can hopefully look at the top cards with Sylvan Library, and then if we don't like them we can shuffle them away, and the fetch taps for mana now anyway. Protects the land from graveyard exile. Mana Crypt being thrown down into Esper Sentinel. Not paying the tax on that. Fertilid being activated again. Never realised this is target player, so you could help out a player with some extra mana if you wanted to. Could be a decent political play once in a blue moon. Activating the Fertilid again. Then a Taurian Mauler, that's a scary one once it gets going. Enters as a 6-6 before it even starts, because that is a Sliver, and which one is it? Yeah, +1/+1 for each other Sliver on the battlefield, so it buffs these Slivers as well. But the Changeling is a 6-6 before it even starts. And yet another activation on the Fertilid, getting some good use out of that. And the 6-6 swings in towards us. Is anyone going to cast a spell into that? I mean, they can buff it with this, can't they? So, not going to fall for that one. Plus counter being added in response anyway, so we go down to 39. Alright, Agitator is triggering this time, so yeah, not sure what happened last time. Gonna say no to it anyway, even though we're in a plus counter deck. Yeah, we've got Armorcraft Judge we could tutor for, but that's just gonna see one creature with plus counters on it. So yeah, we just want to hold that back as a blocker really. I think the 5/7 is keeping players from attacking us potentially. Noteworthy that the Hope of Gara Port is going to be attacking in this turn most likely. If our opponent makes a land, then he can still go for the Winota. A couple of plus counters placed here as well. So it does make a land. Yep, so there's Winota, another plus counter on the Mauler, this time from a cast trigger. And the 3/3 goes into the right against the Sliver player, so the Winota player not being reactionary towards our play so far. Winota triggering for the first time. And gets into a human, that is a Banisher Priest, so would rather not see the Green Warden go down here. I think there's bigger threats at the table anyway. Yep, goes after the Commander, the Legion Sliver. Luckily there's no blockers here that can get rid of the Priest, so yeah, if the Esper Sentinel had had those 2 plus counters on it previously, it could have blocked this and they could have exiled it under the Banisher Priest and then get it back straight away. Deciding to take the damage, leaving the Esper Sentinel in play. A Cyclonic Rift, has that been overloaded? Not having that Sylvan Library in play is going to be really annoying. Although, might buy us time. Archdruid's Charm. I was thinking of going for the Avenger of Zendikar card just so that we've got chump blockers for all this, especially with double landfall triggers and a fetch. But now we could go for the Tireless Tracker and try and get multiple landfall triggers and clue tokens. Anyway, they did decide to exile their Sliver Legion under that thing and then bounce it, so swinging in with everything towards the Winota player, who decides to quit on us, so we have managed to get rid of the Boros deck, who was playing it out in all fairness. Now, do we still need to go for the Avenger of Zendikar, because there's nothing that we're doing about all this? Archdruid's Charm, we might as well pay for the tax. So yeah, I think it's Avenger of Zendikar, crack a fetch, and then play Sylvan Library. I think that's what it has to be here. And there's a land anyway, so we can still make a land this turn. Make landfall twice actually. So Avenger of Zendikar first of all. And we'll get 1 fewer plant tokens here, but I'd rather they were a bit bigger to make attacks more difficult against us. So we end up with 9 plant tokens, make a land, and that makes these 1/2s currently. We'll get down that Sylvan Library again. Our opponent knows all the cards that are in our hand at this point. And yeah, doesn't matter the power and toughness on the plant tokens at the moment, so we'll just pay into the Esper Sentinel tax. We're not going to be cracking that until we see the top cards with the Sylvan Library anyway. So now the Urza's Saga is going to be cracked. They can tap it for mana in response, which it looks as though they are doing. In fact, deciding to make a token in response, so just a 1/1 at the moment. And after the Ozolith, the case of seeing which plus counters player is going to do better here, because neither one of us has seen much of anything with regards to plus counters. There'll be plenty with that one though, a Taurian Mauler, full grip of 7 in our opponent's hand, and now the Aethersworn Canonist has come down, we can get the game moving. The Commander coming down for the first time. Then Mana Crypt, just feeding our opponent a card with Esper Sentinel. I don't know if our opponent really needed to get that down. Maybe he's got a 2-drop, or a 3-drop even, because this taps for mana. Now we have seen on the channel before, I think I've only played this once, but it can combo out of nowhere, so that's 4 mana with a Forest played for the turn. And the fact that players aren't scooping on us when their back is against the wall is always going to make me wary on Magic Online. If players think that they can wriggle out of it with the cards that are in their hand, then they will continue to play it out. Don't tend to rely on top decks that much though. I am casting aspersions against all Magic Online players though. It could be that this player will always be willing to play it out. A Machaos is going to come down with 3 counters on it, and therefore the Commander goes for a Lightning Bolt onto us, surprisingly. Maybe trying to dissuade this player from swinging in towards him. Worried if a Lightning Bolt is pointed here, then these will come in response. Just need to pray that Slivers don't get any means of evasion at this point. The Cascade is back online though. That is a Constricting Sliver, a 6 mana one with Cascade. When this creature enters the battlefield, you can exile a creature an opponent controls until it leaves, so more damage was pointed at us with the Shalai there, because a plus counter was placed on the Taurian Mauler, and it cascaded not into a Sliver, thankfully, a Descendant's Path. Casting it does trigger the Taurian Mauler though. And again pointing the damage at us. Personally, I'd be exiling the commander here. They might go for our Avenger of Zendikar, but I'd be looking at this because I'm worried about a combo out of nowhere. Might be more Slivers from hand yet, because they can tap for a mana of any colour. And yep, goes after the Avenger, so if we can get rid of this thing, we can get more plant tokens out at least. Not likely to get into board wipes in mono green though. And there we are, a 2 mana Predatory Sliver. We'll get another Cascade and be able to exile something. And again, damage pointed at us. Cascading into a Sol Ring. And damage going over at the Sliver player this time. And getting rid of that Taurian Mauler. And because the Taurian Mauler left the battlefield, it couldn't take its plus counters with it, so those end up on the Ozolith. We see a Howling Mine from the 5 colour player, which is unusual. Tapping down the white, constricting Sliver for mana. There is a Manawef Sliver. Risky to play that, both of your mana enablers, because someone could wipe the board. Ugh, that's the last thing we wanted to see. Cascading into Gale Rider Sliver, so looks as though the gamble paid off here. We're at the lowest life total, so could go in at us. I don't think they can quite take us out though. Oh no, they've got haste on their things, haven't they? So they should be able to. And able to exile a flyer out of the way when the Gale Rider Sliver comes down. So that evasion that we wanted to dodge, unfortunately, haven't managed to do it. I think Winota keeping our Sylvan Library out of play all game was definitely relevant, both with the Aethersworn Canonist and with the, what is it called? The Cathar Commando, the Flash Reclamation Sage, effectively. Obviously we couldn't get into more cards to hopefully do something about all of this, although there's no real board wipes that we've got available to us anyway. I assume that most of this is coming in at us. Yep. Yeah, it's the 9/9 going into the left. So we'll see if Shalai and Hallar has a board wipe. I think last time I played this deck on the channel we won on turn 5, so it's a stark contrast. A lot of times viewers will say that I'm going around pub stomping people, and at the end of the day sometimes you have luck in your decks and sometimes you'll just go off really quickly. Other times you get to turn 8 and do pretty much nothing all game. So it's good to see the contrasts in exactly the same deck. So over to the Naya player's turn, might get lightning bolted. Dodges it, draws an additional card with the Howling Mine, so up to 6 in hand. And plenty of mana thanks to that Fertilid previously. So Shalai and Hallar back into play, and we'll see if he's got that combo in hand. Doesn't have double red available for an all will be 1. I think is double red and 3, but there is another permanent that infinitely combos with this, and I can't remember what it is. A Fertilid into play. Comes down with a couple of plus counters, shocking our opponent. So probably can't do it here. Be interesting to see if he pointed any of that damage over here that he kept pointing at us with those multiple pings. I can't remember how many it was around 4, so it'd be interesting to see if it makes a difference here. Doesn't have any kind of counters doubling or anything like that. Yeah, just getting down the Agitator Ant again. I mean, that's not really going to do anything, although it is one more creature to put a counter onto with Mikaeus, but like I said, won't make a difference, I don't think. So Ozolith triggers at the beginning of combat, 4 counters onto the Mikaeus, which is 4 damage onto the 5 colour player, and then should swing in here really, I think. That is a further 7 damage. We'll probably chump block with the Esper Sentinel. Managed to get him down to 14. Agitator Ant triggering, so if he says yes to any of this, he switches off one of his creatures in combat, but I don't think it really matters here. Descendant's Path potentially reveals, and revealing a Harsh Mercy with that. Howling Mine will send him up to 6 cards in hand, and hopefully he doesn't play any spells here. All he has to do is turn in sideways. Decides to play Door of Destinies, then a Spined Sliver. When it becomes blocked, it gets +1/+1 for each creature blocking it. Cascaded through the entire deck, so there's no more 1 mana Slivers in the deck. Looks like he's only had this in the deck so that he can consistently hit it, although could always grab things like Sol Ring as well. There's obviously Esper Sentinel. There's a 1 mana First Strike Sliver for a single red that he could include, but hasn't decided to include it here. So finally deciding to just turn in sideways. And there we go, minus 86, so the Sliver deck wins this one. Hopefully you all got some enjoyment from this, and I will see you all in the next one. Big thank you to the patrons as ever. I'm tribalkai. Thank you for watching.